I was 80 years old when I realized I had been disappearing for 60 years. I signed my divorce papers on a Tuesday afternoon in March of 2019. My hand shook so badly the lawyer had to steady the pen for me. I was 80 years old. I had been married to Robert James Walker for 60 years, 4 months, and 13 days. Everyone who knew us said we were the perfect couple. Everyone who loved us begged me not to do it. But I did it anyway. I am Evelyn Grace Patterson now, the name I had before I married Robert in 1958. I live alone in a small apartment in Columbus, Ohio. For 6 decades, I played the role of the devoted wife so convincingly that I forgot I was playing a role at all. And I am here to tell you that the most dangerous thing a woman can do is disappear so quietly that nobody notices she is gone. Not even herself. Before you think this is about a bad man, let me stop you right there. Robert worked hard for 43 years at the Ford plant. He provided for our 3 children. He was, by every measure, a good husband. And that is exactly what made leaving him so hard and so necessary. Because a good marriage that slowly kills you does not announce itself with violence. It comes in the small moments when you swallow your words to keep the peace. It comes in decades of saying, "Whatever you want, honey," until you can no longer remember what you wanted at all. What I learned after 60 years of marriage is this: you can love someone deeply and still need to leave them to save your own life. You are probably in a marriage that looks perfect from the outside. You are probably telling yourself that you are too old to start over. You are probably thinking that if you just keep quiet a little longer, everything will be fine. Let me tell you something from my own life. You will wake up one morning and realize that you spent your entire life making someone else comfortable, while you slowly suffocated. Robert and I met in 1957 at a church social in Cleveland. I was 19 years old, working as a secretary at a law firm downtown. Robert was 21, just back from the army. He was tall, had the deepest voice I had ever heard, and when he smiled at me across that church basement, I felt like I was the only woman in the world. We married in June of 1958 at Antioch Baptist Church on Cedar Avenue. I wore my mother's wedding dress with lace sleeves and pearl buttons. I believed with every fiber of my being that I had found my soulmate. When I was 7 months pregnant with our first child, Marcus, in 1959, Robert sat me down and said, "Evelyn, I think it is time you stayed home. A mother should be with her children." I agreed. It was 1959. That was what women did. But slowly my world began to shrink. My dreams of going back to school, of becoming a paralegal, of taking night classes at Cuyahoga Community College. Those dreams got pushed further and further back until I could not even remember I had once wanted them. Robert never forbid me from doing anything, but every time I expressed interest in something, he would say, "That sounds nice, honey." Then pause. "But who is going to watch the kids? Who is going to make sure dinner is ready when I get home from the plant?" And because I loved him, I would say, "You are right. Maybe someday." Someday never came. By 1975, we had 3 children. Marcus was 16. Our daughter Janelle was 13. Our youngest, Kevin, was 9. Robert had been promoted to shift supervisor. We owned a modest house on Kinsman Road. Everyone said I was the perfect wife. But I was disappearing. I remember one Tuesday in October of 1975. I was in the kitchen making Robert's favorite meatloaf. The radio was playing Aretha Franklin. Suddenly I was crying, standing there with raw ground beef in my hands, tears running down my face onto the countertop. Janelle walked in. She was 13, starting to notice things. She said, "Mama, what is wrong? Why are you crying?" I wiped my face and said, "Nothing, baby. Nothing is wrong. Mama is just tired." That was the lie I told myself for the next 44 years. Nothing is wrong. This is just what marriage is. Nothing is wrong. You may be thinking that marriage requires sacrifice, that nobody is happy all the time. And you would be right about some of that, but there is a difference between sacrificing for someone you love and sacrificing yourself completely until there is nothing left. There is a difference between compromise and erasure. I did not learn that difference until I was 80 years old. What finally broke me happened at Robert's 82nd birthday in January of 2018. Our children and grandchildren came over. I made his favorite pot roast, the same meal I had been making every birthday for 60 years. We sang happy birthday. Everyone was laughing and taking pictures. Then our son Kevin stood up to make a toast. He was 52 years old then. He raised his glass and said, "To Dad, the strongest man I know, the best provider, the rock of this family. Dad, thank you for everything you have done for us." Everyone cheered. Robert beamed, and I sat there at the end of the table, in the chair I had sat in for 44 years, and I realized that nobody was going to toast me, not because they did not love me, but because I had made myself so invisible over 60 years that there was nothing to celebrate. I had spent 6 decades in service to this family, and my entire identity had become Robert's wife and the kids' mother. Nobody knew who Evelyn was. Not my children, not my husband, not even me. That night, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. I saw an 80-year-old woman with gray hair and tired eyes. I saw a stranger. And I asked myself a question I had been too afraid to ask for 6 decades. Who are you? I could not answer. I could not name a single thing I loved that Robert had not chosen first. I could not name a single dream I still held. I could not name a single opinion I had expressed in 20 years that contradicted what he believed. I had disappeared, and nobody had noticed because I had done it so quietly, so gradually, so completely. Here is what I learned. Being comfortable is not the same as being alive, and a hollow peace will kill you just as surely as any war. I am not saying Robert was evil. What I am saying is that I let myself become so small that I fit into whatever space he needed me to fill. And that is not his fault. That is mine. The thing nobody tells you about being 80 and realizing you have wasted your life making other people comfortable is that you have 2 choices. Accept that this is how your story ends. Or do something terrifying. I chose terrifying. I asked Robert for a divorce on a Saturday morning in September of 2018. We were having coffee, the same ritual for 60 years. He was reading the Plain Dealer Sports section. I said, "Robert, I need to tell you something. I want a divorce." The look on his face was complete and total shock. He said, "What? Why? What did I do wrong?" And that is when I started crying, because that was exactly the problem. He had not done anything wrong. He had been exactly the man he was raised to be. But he had never once in 60 years asked me who I wanted to be. And I had never once demanded the space to find out. I said, "Robert, you did not do anything wrong. But I am dying. I am 80 years old, and I am dying inside this life. And if I do not leave now, I will die without ever knowing who I actually am." He stared at me. Then he said, "Is there someone else?" "Yes," I said. "Me. There is me, and I have never met her." The divorce took 6 months. Our children were devastated. Marcus stopped speaking to me for 8 months. Janelle cried every time I called. They could not understand why I was destroying what they saw as a perfect family. The people at Antioch Baptist Church, where I had attended for 60 years, they whispered. They said I was selfish. They said I was abandoning my husband in his old age. One woman I had known for 40 years actually crossed the street to avoid speaking to me. And you know what I realized? Not a single one of those people had ever asked me if I was happy. Not once in 60 years had anyone said, "Evelyn, what do you need? Evelyn, who are you?" They cared about the image of the perfect marriage. They did not care about the woman disappearing inside it. I moved into my own apartment in March of 2019, 650 square feet, and I chose every single thing in it myself. I painted the walls soft yellow because I have always loved yellow, and Robert always said yellow was too bright. I bought a blue couch because I like blue. I played jazz music on Sunday mornings, Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald, because I love jazz, and Robert only ever wanted to listen to gospel. I have been divorced for 3 years now, and for the first time in my entire adult life, I know what my own voice sounds like when I am not moderating it to make someone else comfortable. Some days I am lonely. Some days I miss the companionship. Some days I wonder if I made a terrible mistake. But then I make my coffee exactly the way I like it, strong and black with just a little sugar, not the way Robert liked it, the way I like it. And I drink it in my yellow living room while Billie Holiday plays. And I read whatever book I want to read, and I realize that for the first time in 80 years, I am not performing. I am just being. And being is so much better than pretending. I know my story is almost over. Maybe I have 5 more years, maybe 10, or even more. But I will die as myself. I will die as Evelyn Grace Patterson, not as Robert Walker's wife. You probably think it is too late for you. You probably think you are too old to start over. You probably think leaving would hurt too many people. Let me tell you something. You can choose to keep the peace and lose yourself. Or you can choose yourself and let other people be uncomfortable with that choice. Those are your only options. After 60 years of choosing peace over authenticity, I can tell you that peace is not worth what it costs. You can decide right now that you matter. You can decide that your voice deserves to be heard. You can decide that disappearing quietly is not the legacy you want to leave behind. If I could go back to 1958, if I could talk to that 20-year-old girl in her mother's wedding dress, I would tell her to love Robert, yes, but to love herself more fiercely. I would tell her to keep her dreams where she can see them. I would tell her that compromising in a marriage is necessary, but compromising your entire self is not. But I cannot go back. All we have is today. All we have is right now. So here is what I am asking you to do. Ask yourself one question. Who am I when I am not performing for someone else? And if you cannot answer that question, if the silence that follows is terrifying, then you know exactly what I am talking about. Do not wait until you are 80. Do not wait until you have spent 60 years disappearing. Start reclaiming yourself today, because the only person who can save you is you. Your life does not belong to your spouse, or your children, or your church, or anyone's expectations. Your life belongs to you, and you deserve to live it as yourself before it is too late. I have said what I needed to say. My coffee is getting cold, and I am sitting here in my yellow living room, and the sun is coming through my flower curtains, and I am more myself than I have ever been. If what I shared made you feel something uncomfortable, if it stirred something you have been trying to ignore, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Are you choosing yourself, or are you choosing peace? Because those two things are not always the same. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who has been disappearing quietly for years, share this with them. Sometimes we need permission to put ourselves first. Consider this that permission. Now, if you will excuse me, I have a library book I need to finish. Be well.